For those of you coming into the room, welcome to the Vermont Law School Financial Aid Information Series. I'm Shirley Crawford, the director or the associate director of JD enrollment here. And while you're coming in, if you don't mind, it happens to be National Potato Month, and type in your favorite type of potatoes into the chat. For example, I love potato chips or fries, whatever your favorite style of potatoes is. Smashed, type it in. We'll get a sense of our audience that way. Mm. Every potato's a gift. I love it. Twice baked. Yum. Hash browns. Chips. Ooh, scalloped. Forgot about those.
Oh, scalloped are always great.
Yeah. Mashed potatoes. Yum. Ooh, sweet potatoes. Oh, baked with sour cream. It looks like McDonald's fries in that red container. Lots of mashed.
I mean, I think that mashed probably it might take it here if we were doing
No.
survey. I got to agree. I have to agree. They're really good.
I don't make them enough. I kind of only make them at Thanksgiving, and I should make them more often.
I mean, I feel like they're probably, the one of the easiest ones to make. Just cut them up, boil them, mash them up, put some stuff in there, and they're done.
Do you peel yours first, or do you keep the skin on?
It depends on what kind of potato you use, I guess.
Mhm.
If you're going to use red, you have to keep the skins on. Russets, probably take them off. It depends.
Mhm.
There's no one answer with potatoes.
All right, well, we could keep going on potatoes forever here, but we wanted to welcome you all, and we'll get our info session started. Again, I'm Shirley Crawford, the Associate Director of JD Recruitment at Vermont Law and Grad School. I've been with the school 11 years doing admissions. Before that, I did my JD degree at Vermont Law and Grad School, and then practiced corporate securities law in New York City for many years before coming to this position. And I'd like to introduce you to some of my colleagues. Ellen Doobie, who is our outreach and events coordinator. We also have Jordan Cooper on the panel, who is one of our JD admissions counselors. And our big star for today is Melissa Erickson, who also did her JD at Vermont Law School and is our Director of Financial Aid. Melissa, if you want to start us off, that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So hello, everyone, and welcome. As Shirley said, I am a VLGS grad. I graduated with my JD back in 2010 and have worked here in some capacity now for, I believe, about 12 years. So it's always interesting to sort of see the perspective of incoming students. So certainly welcome to the financial aid, how to apply for financial aid session. I'm going to give you a very brief overview of the financial aid process, and then would be happy to answer any questions. If you have specific questions during the presentation, certainly feel free to put them in the chat. There will also be time for questions and answers at the end. So if you'd prefer to keep them to then, certainly feel free. Now, when deciding where to go to law school, I think most students focused on the cost of tuition, how much scholarship they can receive, stuff like that. But there's actually many considerations that you'll want to take into account when applying. Financial aid is fairly straightforward, but I understand that it can appear really daunting to a lot of our students. So we're going to run through some basics. I can tell you that when I was graduating from law school, when I was going through law school, I did not know anything about financial aid. I kind of just did what they told me to do and figured that I'd manage it all after I was done. I definitely do not recommend this strategy. It causes a lot of unnecessary stress. So it's always my goal for our students to make sure that they understand the basics so that they don't have that unnecessary stress. Um, Okay, so listed here are the types of financial aid that you may be awarded. Our office breaks these out into two different categories. You have institutional aid and federal aid. Merit scholarships and grant aid are considered institutional aid, and it's at the discretion of the VLGS admissions office and financial aid office to award those funds. And while you're not required to complete a FAFSA to be considered for scholarships, you will need to complete one if you plan to take out federal loans, if you want to request federal work study later in your program, or if you would like to be considered for need-based aid. Scholarship awards are decided by the admissions office while you're applying, and grant or need-based aid is awarded by the financial aid office. Unfortunately, for graduate students, you do not have any federal grants available, as those are all reserved for undergraduate students. So the four types of funds that are listed here are what students have available to them to pay their education expenses. Next is everybody's favorite topic, the FAFSA. The website for that is studentaid.gov. In fact, the website that you will use for pretty much everything having to do with your federal loans is studentaid.gov. It's something that you're going to get very familiar with. Unlike when you're in the undergraduate, you do not need to report your parents' information on the FAFSA. As long as you meet the basic eligibility criteria, you'll be eligible for federal loans. Some students think that maybe because they make too much money or because their parents do, that they won't be eligible to receive federal aid in graduate school. That's just not the case. As long as you meet the basic criteria, you'll be able to borrow federal loans. A small caveat here is for the Grad Plus loan. We'll cover more on that in a little bit. So basically, you need to be a US citizen or an eligible non-citizen with a valid Social Security number, have a high school diploma or GED, and be enrolled in an eligible program. Those are the only criteria that are required for you to be able to complete the FAFSA. Once you log into the FAFSA website, you'll want to hover over FAFSA form at the top of the page, then select complete the FAFSA form. A quick note about years here. I'm not sure if we have any master's students in this group. If we do, and you plan on starting in the summer term, you must complete both 24-25 and 25-26. Students who are starting in the fall, so our JD students, you'll just need to complete the 25-26 FAFSA. Once you start a new FAFSA and select that you're completing it as a student, you'll need to give consent for tax information to be imported into the FAFSA directly from the IRS website. This is going to make completing it a lot easier, as you're not going to have to enter all of that information. FAFSAs now require tax information from 2 years previous. So the FAFSA for 25-26 is going to require tax information from 2023. So it's a lot easier to have that information pulled directly in from the IRS's website than for you to have to go and find your taxes and enter all of that information. As I stated already, the income information is not going to impact your eligibility for federal loans. Graduate students, your aid is not going to be determined by need. Need only determines aid eligibility in undergrad. So after you go through this part, a series of videos are going to be available over the next few pages on the website. They're going to teach you probably more than you ever wanted to know about completing a FAFSA. I will leave it up to you whether or not you want to actually watch those 4 or 5 videos that are there. It's a lot of information. It may be helpful for some. So if it's something that you're interested in, certainly take a look. And then after that, you will be asked to confirm personal identifiers, your name, social security number, address, date of birth, stuff like that. One common issue we see with our students in submitting their FAFSA is that they're doing it under the wrong grade level. So when you get to the step illustrated in number 3 here, be sure to select graduate instead of undergrad. This is not only going to impact the amount of money that we are told that you're eligible to receive, but it's also ultimately going to cause all of your loans to be rejected and delay your disbursement. So be sure to select that you're completing it as a graduate student. If you have already submitted your FAFSA and you're not sure exactly what status you put on there, you can always go in and amend your FAFSA to make sure that you are certifying that you're a graduate level student. At the end of all of the personal circumstances question, your dependency status should say independent. This is true for all graduate students, whether somebody else can claim you on their taxes as their dependent. All graduate students are automatically independent for the purposes of financial aid. Following this, you're going to be asked a lot of demographics questions. It's all pretty simple. It's all pretty quick to get through. And then some finance questions. Now, it's important that you answer truthfully in the finances section. It's going to ask you how much you have in assets, stuff like that. Again, none of this information is going to be used to determine your eligibility. It's not even something that we look at, but because it is a federal form, you do have to make sure to fill it out as accurately as possible. Final step here is to select the schools to which you want your FAFSA sent. Every year, a significant number of our students submit their FAFSAs to the University of Vermont. While we do have tremendous respect for that institution, we are not them. So if you fill out this question as demonstrated here, we will receive your FAFSA. Alternatively, you can always search by the school code, which is up there on the screen. It's G11934. Make sure you're choosing Vermont Law School, and we will receive your document. It can take up to 10 days for us to receive a FAFSA after it is submitted, so it's not automatic. It doesn't happen overly quickly, but as long as you are submitting it well before you're actually intending to start school, we'll have plenty of time to package you and to process your aid. And again, if you've already completed the FAFSA and you're not sure you include us as a recipient school, you can go back in and add us if you did not. Once you've selected all of that, you're going to confirm all of the information that you've entered, and then just click the box under sign and submit, and your FAFSA is done. You don't have to do it again until the following year. So the result of all of that is that now you can be awarded federal loans. There are currently 2 federal loans available to graduate students. The direct unsubsidized loan has a slightly lower interest rate and origination fee and is not credit contingent, but also has an annual maximum of $20,500. The Grad Plus is credit contingent and has higher fees and an interest rate, but you can borrow up to the cost of attendance. You do not have to have good credit to qualify for the Grad Plus. You just can't have an adverse credit history. If you do, you may be initially declined. It happens to a small number of our students every single year. If that's the case, you have 2 options. You can either obtain a cosigner, or if you're eligible, you can appeal the original decision and potentially be approved. Now, whether or not you're going to be approved upon appeal will depend entirely on your personal situation and what caused the initial denial. So if it's something in the history on your credit report that has since been resolved, typically you'll only have to submit proof that it is no longer in default, it's no longer collections, whatever caused that denial, and they'll approve your loan. If it's something that's still currently on your credit report, typically you will have to get a cosigner. If you're at all concerned about your credit and whether or not you're going to pass that credit check, I highly recommend that you start dealing with that now. You certainly do not want to move to Vermont, get yourself all set up for school, only to learn that you can't receive Grad Plus funding to cover even your tuition balance, let alone your living expenses. So these interest rates are for the current year. These rates are set each summer for the following year, so they will likely change by the time most of you start school. They typically don't change a tremendous amount. There have been a few times over the last couple of years where they have jumped either up or down by a full percentage point. There is no way really we know exactly what they're going to do until it is announced, typically at the beginning of July. Now, I know there's been a lot of talk recently about the future of the Grad Plus loan program. I'm absolutely happy to discuss that at the end if anybody has any questions. As of right now, we can only operate under what we currently know. Legislation was proposed last year to get rid of Grad Plus loans. That legislation did fail, but there's certainly a possibility that similar legislation will be proposed again this year. I'm not going to pretend to know or understand exactly what is going on in our federal government right now or what they have planned for it. We're constantly looking out for any changes that may impact our students' ability to attend school. But for the moment, we're just going to continue as we always have, sort of with the knowledge that it may change in the back of our minds. So it's certainly just something you're going to want to keep in mind. Moving on to the cost of attendance, which is hopefully a little bit happier topic. Cost of attendance is also known as the student expense budget. It represents the maximum amount a student can request in total financial aid, which includes scholarship, grants, loans, work study. It's all of the funds that you can get from the institution. It's all considered financial aid. On the left side, we have your direct costs, which unfortunately you don't have any control over. It's going to be your tuition and your fees that are charged either per semester or on an annual basis. On the right side is what you would be eligible to request for living expenses for the year. These expenses are largely influenced by each student's individual needs and situations. Obviously, if you're a parent, for example, you're going to have higher monthly expenses because you have childcare, you need a bigger place to live, more food, stuff like that. So the above amounts represent a reasonable budget for an average VLGS student. These numbers actually come from surveys that we send out to our students, so they do represent their actual expenses. Because we don't know exactly what you specifically will need, we do initially package all of our students the same. You're certainly under no obligation to accept the loan funds that are offered to you. If you need less, you can always adjust the amount. All you need to do is let us know and we can reduce. Oh, sorry, forgot to put that right side up there. So these are going to be your living expenses for the year. Typically, our rent is $1,000 a month. So these would basically be divided by 8. So it's a four-month semester. So these, like I said, if you ever need us to reduce the amount of loan that you have, certainly just let us know. If your rent is, say, $600 a month and we've budgeted $1,000 for it, you can always ask us to reduce. You always want to try and reduce the amount of loans that you take so that you're not borrowing, obviously, more than you need. Okay. Many of our students are going to experience unexpected expenses during their time at VLGS. For approved expenses like those listed, we can increase your overall student expense budget and process additional aid to cover the cost. Funding for these types of emergency expenses should not be paid out of your regular living expenses. You can request additional aid to cover them. Our most, I guess, popular ones are definitely going to be medical costs not covered by insurance, car repairs that aren't considered routine maintenance, dependent care. You can purchase a laptop one time you're here. We can give you a budget increase for that. And then a lot of students have to purchase snow tires. For those of you who are from areas that don't get a lot of snow, I highly recommend that you purchase snow tires. It can be a lifesaver around here. So certainly you do have additional funding available for these specific expenses. One quick note, though, the federal government does prohibit us from giving funding specifically for certain expenses. Things like car repairs, or I'm sorry, car payments, credit card bills, moving expenses. These are things that the federal government specifically says we cannot include in the student expense budget. Certainly, you can still use your financial aid to cover those expenses, but it's not something that we can give you additional funding for. So it's something that you'll want to take into account, especially if you are moving here at the start of your program. This is an example of a typical financial aid award package for a JD student. You have your direct costs at the top. which will be reduced by any merit scholarship that is awarded by admissions. For this student, after scholarship, the amount they owe is going to be $32,693. Take from that the net amount on the unsubsidized loan, because remember, these loans do have origination fees, and they're left owing $12,409, which would typically be paid with the Grad Plus loan. However, their remaining eligibility for the Grad Plus is $38,315, meaning that the maximum amount for the year they would be able to request in Grad Plus funding is $38,315. The difference between that and the $12,409 owed is what the student can request for living expenses for the year. Typically, a student who requests the maximum amount of loans here will receive approximately $11,000 per semester to pay for their living expenses. Before bringing all of this together, I want to talk just for a minute about timing. I'm currently building the 25-26 year in our system. We hope to start importing the FAFSAs that we've already received in the next week or so and packaging our admitted students soon thereafter. If you've already been admitted and already submitted your FAFSA, you should receive the award notification email by the end of this month. In that email will be a link and instructions to sign on to NetPartner, which is the financial aid portal. It's going to be where you view your financial aid package, where you accept your loans, all of that stuff. And if you would like to be considered for need-based aid, all you need to do is reply to that email and request consideration. We cannot determine your eligibility until that email has been sent, but if you just reply to it, say you'd like to be considered for need-based aid, we'll take a look at your eligibility. So once you sign on to NetPartner, you will want to make sure that the year at the top of the page is correct. For students starting in the summer, your summer package will be under 24-25. The following fall, spring, and potentially summer, depending on your program, is going to be under 25-26. The three most important pages for you on here at this point are going to be the awards and budget page, which, as the name implies, is going to list your financial aid award and your student expense budget. Next is the accept awards page, and lastly, final steps. All of the financial aid funds that have been awarded to you will be listed individually on the accept awards page. Now, because we assume that you want the free money that has been offered to you, we accept your scholarship and grant funds on your behalf. You do not have to accept those. You do, however, have to either accept or decline any loan funds that have been awarded to you. If you leave any of these funds in pending status, our system will not allow us to disperse your scholarship. So even if you submitted a FAFSA, you've been packaged with loans, if you determine that you don't actually need them, all you need to do is go in and decline them, and we'll be able to process your scholarship funding. Each loan is going to have its own drop-down menu where you can change the status if you want to do different statuses for the two loans. If you want to accept all of them, you just need to hit the accept all button. If you want to decline them, you can hit the decline all button. Again, that's not going to change the status on your scholarship since it's already been accepted. It's just going to change the status on the funds that are still in pending. After you've done whatever you need to do, whether it's hitting one of the buttons or changing the status on the individual loans, just hit submit and you're all set. Your financial aid has been accepted for the year. There won't be anything you need to do until you submit a new FAFSA for the following year. Finally, the final steps page. So this is going to list all of your outstanding requirements. If you are accepting federal loans, you're going to have to do obviously a promissory note, entrance counseling, and once again, all of those can be done at studentaid.gov. It's a website that you're going to get to know very well. So once you're signed in, hover over loans and grants at the top of the page. The entrance counseling is fairly straightforward. You're going to click on it. You're going to click that you are a graduate professional student, and it's going to take you through the steps of the counseling. To complete their promissory notes, you're going to select master promissory note from that same menu. Click select MPN type, and it's going to take you to another page where you will actually start to complete your promissory notes. Which ones you have to do is going to depend on what loans you actually accept. If you're only accepting the unsubsidized loan, obviously you only have to do the unsubsidized loan promissory note. If you're going to accept both, then you do need to do both. So one thing to keep in mind is, with a few exceptions, these two loans are identical. They all have a standard 10-year repayment cycle. They are both unsubsidized, meaning they start to accrue interest on the day that funding is dispersed. They are essentially the same loan with the exception of their interest rates, origination fees, and then the fact that the Grad Plus is credit contingent. So you will have to do both of those. It's a slightly different process. You do have to give permission during the Grad Plus promissory note for them to pull your credit. So unfortunately, it is something you'll have to do. For the most part, you'll only have to do both of these promissory notes once. Once you complete them, assuming that you don't need an endorser, a cosigner for your Grad Plus loan, you will not have to complete it again while you're in school. It will last the 3 or 4 years that you are here. Okay, and there you have it. A brief overview of the financial aid process and financing your education. I can tell you that I have actually talked longer today than it's going to take you to complete many of these steps. The process has been very simplified over the years. It's pretty straightforward. If you have any questions while you're going through it, if you're not sure how you should answer a question, certainly contact us. Our contact information is there on the screen. Always here to help. Email us, give us a call, whatever you need. If you have any questions filling out your FAFSAs, your promissory notes. One thing about the promissory notes, I forgot to mention, it's not actually something that you want to do right now. Certainly once you're packaged, you can go on and accept your financial aid, but you're going to want to wait probably until July or August to complete your promissory notes specifically for the Grad Plus loan. Once you submit that, it is going to pull your credit, and that credit check only lasts for a certain amount of time. So if you complete it too far in advance, once we process your loan, they're going to pull your credit again. If your credit has changed at all, certainly it can be a little bit of a surprise if you were approved the first time and maybe declined this time. But mostly you don't want to unnecessary credit pulls if you can avoid it at all. So at this point, certainly we can open it up for questions. Whether we've covered the topic today or not, I'm happy to answer any questions about financial aid that y'all might have.
Melissa, we have a couple of questions in the chat. I was wondering if you're able to put your camera on. We've just
Oh, my
looked at the
camera's
black
off?
box. Yeah, we've just been looking at the black box with your name this whole time. I didn't want to interrupt you during your presentation. Thank you. We
Could have
see you
just,
now.
am I on now?
Yeah, you're on
Okay.
now. And our first question is from two of the hybrid prospective students is, does the hybrid program at the standard course load qualify for direct unsubsidized loans?
Yes, so all of our programs qualify for the direct unsubsidized loan. You do still have that annual limit of 20,500, and that would be divided over your 3 semesters. So it would be divided over the fall, spring, and summer. Same for our master's students.
And, what is the deadline for completing the FAFSA?
There isn't really a deadline. As long as we receive it at least a week before you're going to start, we will have time to package you and then process your aid. I really do recommend that you complete it as soon as possible so that we do have it. If you're in the middle of the application process right now and you complete it as soon as you are admitted, we can get that package out to you so you know exactly where you stand. Like I said, it can take a little bit to get to us. So if you are under any sort of time crunch, once you do start receiving, offers of admission, certainly having it done sooner, we're going to be able to get that stuff out to you faster. So before you start, I guess is the answer, but in reality, as soon as you can get it done is best.
And the next question that's in the chat is from Caleb. Are the merit scholarships issued for the hybrid program? I can take that question, Caleb. Yes, we do offer merit scholarships for the hybrid JD program as well as for our residential JD program, kind of in essence, the higher your undergraduate GPA and the higher your LSAT score is, the higher your merit scholarship will be. And you'll find you don't have to do anything special to qualify or to be considered for a merit scholarship, other than submit your application. And when you're admitted, your admission letter will contain your merit scholarship in there. And Melissa has asked, would funding be affected if the JD program is accelerated?
Your funding wouldn't be affected, your financial aid package would be. So you would receive basically the same amount for your fall, spring, and summer. So that example financial aid package would essentially just include another semester. So your same scholarship would be available, the same amount in the unsubsidized loan, and the Grad Plus would all be the same. So it wouldn't be different as much as your financial aid package would be different.
And for those of you on here, you're welcome to type your questions either in the chat or unmute yourself and raise your virtual hand. And Melissa will be able to get back to you with her answers.
Yeah, I unmuted and came onto camera to ask my question. I'm curious about the Yellow Ribbon program and how many veterans are taking advantage of that. How much money is set aside per veteran? That's where I feel like my financial aid is going to be coming from as a veteran myself to pay for graduate school, or so I'm more clearly asking for information about the Yellow Ribbon program.
So that is not really a question that I can answer on like a broad basis, as VA funding is very specific to different people. For you, I would highly recommend that you reach out to Deb Becker. She's our VA certifying official, and I can put her her email address in the chat. She's going to be able to give you a lot more information. We do participate in Yellow Ribbon. And so if your like regular VA funds run out after the spring semester, which they typically will, if you say you're an AJD or a hybrid JD and you're enrolled in the summer, that's typically when your Yellow Ribbon funds are going to kick in. So we do match, I think it's $15,000. So you can receive an additional 15 from the VA and then an additional 15 from us.
Great, thank you. And is that per semester? And the name was Deb Becker?
Yes, I will put her email address. Her name is Deb Becker, and it's per year.
Okay,
And so it sort of depends on what level of funding you have, whether, you know, and what chapter it is. So I don't personally feel comfortable just kind of answering on a broad basis, but she would be able to give you specific information according to what your VA funding is.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Ellen.
And Jermaine, if you don't mind unmuting yourself and clarifying your question, I'm not sure. You mentioned that you received some funding about another type of, or some information about another type of house financing from Veronica Schlurf. I'm not sure what it was you're referring to.
Yeah, good afternoon. How you doing?
Well, thank you.
Good. So I was looking into just not only the professional, the JD hybrid program, but also the professional certificate in restorative justice. However, like in the email that I received as far as financial aid and stuff like that, they were talking about the federal aid, but in the email it says, although funding may be available through vsac.org. So I wasn't sure if that was like some alternative financing that you could take out, or if that was basically the merit-based scholarships and other scholarships that are available to the students based on performance-wise and things of that nature.
That's specific to the professional certificate in restorative justice, because the certificate does not qualify for financial aid. So
Mhm.
that is loans through Vermont that you can be considered for.
Okay, yeah. And the
Not
reason
for the
why I said that was,
JD, but for the professional certificate.
yeah, because she informed me, and of course, that was going to be another question that I had, because I applied for the certificate, but she told me, she was like, well, maybe you want to speak with somebody about it because you could, I guess it could be your focus study. Restorative justice could be your focus study if you're admitted into the JD program as far as your career path.
So in the hybrid program, you can take, like if you did the restorative justice specialization, I suspect this is what she was referring to, you'll take at least 8
Mhm.
courses in restorative justice.
Okay. Okay, as opposed to doing the dual enrollment, that's what I classified as, or joint degree, as far as doing the master's degree in restorative justice.
So that's yet another option to do the online hybrid JD as a joint degree with the Master of Arts in Restorative Justice. And if you did that combination, you'd get to share 9 credits between the JD and the Masters, and it would save you over $12,000 off the cost of the Masters. There is no similar credit sharing available
Mhm.
with the professional certificate and the JD.
Okay, so here's the next question. So, would financial aid still be awarded to you if you already have a master's degree, if you decided to get the master's degree in restorative justice?
Melissa should probably be the expert to take that, but I would say yes.
Yes,
Okay.
so your previous master's degree is not going to impact your eligibility for aid in a new master's degree.
Okay, okay, okay. All right. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Emma has asked, when is the total cost of tuition after financial aid and loans due?
So tuition is due. I believe it's 1 week before the start of classes. If you plan on covering your entire balance with your scholarship and federal loans, you don't really need to worry about that due date. If you still have a balance owed after your scholarship and your federal loans are applied, that would be due 1 week before the start of classes.
I also have one other question, and it's still about finances, but the question entails about if you're accepted seat deposits, and that should be a whole separate source of financing that should be available outside of financial aid.
Well, your deposit for the program, for example, the $750 deposit to secure your spot in the online hybrid JD program, that's actually part of your tuition.
Okay, so you don't have to prepay it upon receipt of acceptance, or
You do. You would have
okay,
to
okay.
prepay it then, but know that financial aid could potentially, correct me if I'm wrong, Melissa, well, since it's covering all your remaining tuition, not covered by your scholarships, would technically sort of cover that.
It would also be, so your seat deposit is refunded to you when you actually start classes. So it goes on as a credit on your student account.
So once you pay it, and then the credit will come back to you.
Correct. Yep. Once you start
Okay.
classes, you'll see it on your student account as a credit.
Okay, that's what I was just trying, because I was online and I was looking as far as like the application process, and then I saw I guess like deposit twice on there, as far as seat deposit twice on there as far as acceptance is concerned, and I was just trying to figure that portion out, what was going on with that. So it's just a one-time fee of $750.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
And if anybody else has any more questions, feel free to either unmute yourself and ask it or to type it into the chat. While we're waiting for any additional questions, I wanted to ask a question that I get from students a lot, Melissa, is what is the difference between financial aid and scholarships? It seems a lot of people think it's one and the same thing.
So financial aid is sort of the umbrella term. Scholarship is part of your financial aid. So if you're talking about financial aid funds, you have the loans, merit scholarship, grants. Those are all part of your financial aid. So they're different in that financial aid is more than just scholarships, but scholarships is part of your financial aid.
And thanks, David, for drawing my attention to Fawn's question. Fawn, I'm sorry I missed you earlier. What would you like to ask?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had typed it in the chat. It was, when are the mission scholarships announced and what are the potential amounts awarded?
So the mission scholarships will be announced April 15th. And the amount awarded will be a $3,000 stipend for at some point in your program when you're going off to do like a legal externship, for example, which is typically in the second or the third year.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I got one other question. So for the students that do the hybrid program, would you advise us to calculate our in-person long weekends into our financial aid budget as far as like air travel and stuff? Because I saw on the slide that you talked about travel home, but what about factoring it into us coming to having to stay there or residency there during those times of study?
So you would be able to sort of use that approved budget increase for a round trip travel home to fund your travel here for that week. Certainly that is up to you. That funding would be available to you. Most of our hybrid students do not request living expenses, or at least not full living expenses. If you have any funding available to you that you have not requested, obviously you can request it for that purpose and then the travel on top of it. If you have requested all of your living expenses, we would take a look at what your expenses actually were for that week and see if there was any budget increases that we would be able to approve for you to actually come out here for the residency week. So it kind of depends. If you have money left to request, you can request as much as you need to cover it. You can do the round trip for your travel expenses. If you've requested everything, it depends on what your actual expenses are. But we would certainly take a look at those and approve anything that you would be able to receive.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a question from, I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly, either Diane or Deanne. If you were accepted to the hybrid program, do you have to start in the fall or can you start earlier in the summer? When you're accepted to either the hybrid or the residential program, you're actually starting kind of in mid-August. That's when your orientation will be. And to answer your question more fully, we do only have the fall start. We don't have you can't start it earlier or really just that. All right, any other questions? I wanted to let you know that we're going to have some other upcoming info sessions on if you're a prospective residential JD student. The next two that are coming up would be super helpful for you. On Wednesday, February 26th at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're doing an overview of the JD program with our dean and an overview of what's a law clinic. And we'll have two of the directors of the law clinics, one, the South Royalton Legal Clinic, which is like a legal aid that's right on our campus that our students can work on, and also from our animal law clinic. They'll be there to tell you more about those particular clinics. And then on Wednesday, March 12th at 1 p.m., this is another event that's geared towards our residential JD students. It's all about life in Vermont. You know, what's it like for how to find housing? What do you do here in this little small but beautiful town and all that kind of thing. And we'll have actual students on there to give you their perspective as well. And then on Wednesday, March 26th, our dean is going to do a presentation about the next generation bar. All of you that are going to law school in the future, you will not take the bar exam that's been administered for the last however many years. You're going to be taking a new version of the bar, which is supposed to be a more practical exam, and it's called the Next Generation Bar. And our dean happens to be on a committee and is totally in the know about all of that. So she'll give you the down low that night. Again, that's March 26th at 6 p.m. And then for the prospective hybrid students on Wednesday, April 26th at 1 p.m., we're going to have an event called Military and Military Families and how the flexible online hybrid JD program works for them. So we hope to see you at some of those events. And thank you all for coming today. Thank you, panelists, for being here today as well. Have a good afternoon, all.